Good morning, gals. It's Scrappy and Pink Lady Lisa back with another video. This time I'm going to show you how I put together this card here. It is for a card challenge on a Facebook group called Roxy's Cardspiration. So to all my new subscribers who have Cricuts and are wanting to know how to use them, I'm going to show you some basic tips today. And go ahead and head on over to Facebook if you have an account and check out the Cardspiration challenge. We'd love to have you join us. There is a sketch and a color palette, and it's been a lot of fun, and you can check out the cards from the Halloween one we did last month too. So anyhow, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to move the card out of our way, and I'm going to show you right now that we are using the first cartridge. It is going to be Accent Essentials, and we are going to be working on page 81 right there, and you see two images right here. The scalloped with the holes and the solid scallop. The solid scallop will be used by pressing the shift key, and I'm going to show you that. So let's go ahead and come on up to our overlay. For those of you that are doing Cricut now, if you have a newer version, it may be a little bit different. You might not have these overlays. So hopefully this will help some of you that have a Cricut and may not know this information, or for those of my subscribers that are new that have an older Cricut, this is how yours will work. We'll press the shift key, and then the key that we are wanting to work with is going to be right here in the bottom corner. And we have our fit to length on, and I have set it for a 5.5 inch length so that it will fit just nicely across the bottom of our card, just like that. And the fit to length button is on. That's the one that's lit up, and I'm going to go ahead, because I've already made a cut on my mat, I'm going to use my arrow keys and mouse over, and we are going to press cut. And it's telling me at 3/4 of an inch that it's going to cut at 5.5. So it's doing its cutting now. Okay, and then we're just going to press the unload. And give me just a second while I get the cut off the mat. And there is our cut. So I'm going to stop the video here and get set up to show you how I cut out the pumpkin, and I'll be back in just a second. Hey gals, I'm back again with the next part. And for the next part of our cartridge to cut out the pumpkins, we are going to be using the Stretch Your Imagination cartridge. And this time we are going to be on page 44, and we are going to be using these pumpkins here. But if you'll notice, the pumpkin that I cut out didn't have a face. So these are the two pumpkins right here in the green that we're going to be using. So we're going to be working with the shadow and the blackout key. So my paper is already loaded. The first thing I'm going to do is move down to this orange paper here, just by pressing these keys up here. I'm going to move down to my orange paper, and I did a test cut, and I cut that pumpkin at 3 1/4. So then we're going to just use our size dial and adjust our size to 3 1/4. And for that one, you'll see I did the blackout. So you can see up here on your keypad, we're going to press the blackout key and then our pumpkin key, which is right here. And once again, we're going to check our viewfinder. Hey gals, I'm back again with the next part. And for the next part of our cartridge to cut out the pumpkins, we are going to be using the Stretch Your Imagination cartridge. And this time we are going to be on page 44, and we are going to be using these pumpkins here. But if you'll notice, the pumpkin that I cut out didn't have a face. So these are the two pumpkins right here in the green that we're going to be using. So we're going to be working with the shadow and the blackout key. So my paper is already loaded. The first thing I'm going to do is move down to this orange paper here, just by pressing these keys up here. I'm going to move down to my orange paper, and I did a test cut, and I cut that pumpkin at 3 1/4. So then we're going to just use our size dial and adjust our size to 3 1/4. And for that one, you'll see I did the blackout. So you can see up here on your keypad, we're going to press the blackout key and then our pumpkin key, which is right here. And once again, we're going to check our viewfinder. Okay, gals, I'm back. This time I have 2 papers loaded on my mat. The 2 papers that we have used to cut our pumpkin, the orange, and behind is a paper that has text on it. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Remember, for this one, we are using our Stretch Your Imagination cartridge. And as we saw in our book, we are going to press the blackout key, which is right here. And then we are going to press our pumpkin key, which is right here. And then we look in our viewfinder screen and we see that that pumpkin matches this pumpkin right here, which is the one we want to cut. So we are going to go ahead and press cut on our machine. And then what we are going to do, instead of unloading this, we are going to take our arrows up here and we are going to move it back over, and then we're going to go down so we can get set up for the next cut. The next cut that we're going to use is the same key, the same cartridge, only we're going to do this shadow one right here, and we're going to do this one at 3.5. So this time we are going to take off blackout, we're going to press shadow, pumpkin, and once again that does match up to this cut that we're looking to get right here. So we're going to go ahead and press cut. Okay, now this brings me to a perfect point. I'm going to go ahead and unload my paper. As you can see, this pumpkin here, the second pumpkin that we cut, was too big for the space that I had there, so it cut into our orange paper. So sometimes that will happen, especially if you're using a cartridge for the first time and you're not sure how it's going to cut. That's why usually, which I didn't do this time, I always like to make test cuts so that I know exactly the size I'm working with. So we have our orange pumpkin. You can see that here, and that's the size we need. But our pumpkin on the book paper didn't quite turn out so well. So I'm going to pause the video here, put some Hi gals, it's Scrappy Pink Lady Lisa back, and I'm going to show you the next step of this card. So this is my embossing folder, and as you can see in this card here, I embossed the pumpkin and the piece down below. So we're going to take our pumpkin that we cut out, and I think I'm going to have to do them one at a time because I don't think they'll both fit. And the 2 clear plates, you sandwich it through, and then you make sure tab 1 and tab 2 are pulled up to use the big kick. And then you make sure you sandwich it, and then you roll it on through. And if it makes some crackling noise, that's alright. And then your pumpkin will come out all embossed just like that. So let me go ahead and run the scallop layer through, and then we'll move on to the next step. Whoops. Okay. This one I kind of had to run through on an angle because it didn't quite fit all the way across straight. But that's alright because it will still emboss. Sorry, it's a heavy picture. I had to bend down and pick up the plate. So, same thing, both tabs and back, and you just run it right through. piece comes out embossed. So give me just a second to move this out of the way and we'll move on to the next step. Moving it over here. Alright, the next step is we're going to take our paper. You can see I was doing some inking earlier. That's why the paper looks like that. So our next step is we're going to take our distressing tool, and I've been using Wild Honey ink by Ranger. And we are going to just rub it lightly over this, and you can see how nicely the embossing picks up the inking. And all of these pieces have been sprayed with, this is Lindy's Stamp Gang. It's called Glory of the Seas Gold. And you can just see all that glitter right down there. And goodness, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the camera, the sparkle that's on that piece. But it's all sparkly with all of that. So then what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of this is Vintage Photo that we're using now. We're going to take a little bit of this and we're just going to run a little bit of this over our pumpkin too, just to give it a little bit more texture and dimension. We're going to run it across. Now with the pumpkin, I showed you that this was cut from Stretch Your Imagination. I want to show you one more thing with the pumpkin, so let me find the pumpkin cut real quick. Okay, right here, as you can see, I told you the first pumpkin that we cut was right here on this shadow section. Make sure it's in frame. Okay, what I did to get the green top is I just ran another piece of paper. I took a green piece of paper and stuck it on my Cricut, and I cut the pumpkin again. If you have a scrap piece of green paper and it only cuts the top, that's all right. And then I layered it right up on top of here. So I just wanted to show you that. If you want to add extra pieces to something that doesn't have an extra piece, you can do it. Also here, there is a layers piece. You could do it that way and use the layers button, just like I showed you earlier with the shadow button and the blackout button. So that's just another tip for you, ladies, when using your Cricut. Alright, you want to make the top a little bit dark up here. Let's get our lids back on our ink. Okay, now we're going to take green stickles, which you can see that I used on the card here, and this is in Firefly. And we are going to fill this top green section in because we want to give some sparkle and bling to our card. Can't have a card without sparkle and bling, can we, gals? So you just take the tip of that and you fill this all in, and then we'll set this aside to dry. So let me just finish this and then I'll show you one other thing in this section and then we will come back for the next. So there you can see that, and that's going to dry and look just like that on the card that we did. So there's that piece right there. We'll set that right there to dry. And then to get the sparkles on this piece, what I did was I just took and squirted a little bit of the stickles out on the paper, just like that. Just a tad bit more. Like that. And then you just take your finger and you can just rub over like that wherever you want to have just a little bit of extra bling. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let these pieces dry and I'll be back to show you some more in just a few minutes. Okay gals, it's Scrapping Pink Lady Lisa back with the next part of our card. If you'll remember, we left off with our stickles drying on our pumpkin and our embossed piece across the bottom. Now we're going to work on this background piece to make it look like the corrugated cards that you can buy at Michael's, and we're going to squeeze our crimper really tight like this, and we're going to run our paper through, and you can see what kind of cool effect that gives your paper. Okay, we're going to put that on the front of our card, but we're not done yet, because if you look at this and look at this paper, you can tell quite a difference. So now we have to get the effect that this paper has just on this one. So we're going to do a little bit of inking again with our wild honey. Okay, we don't want it everywhere, and in some places we want it a little bit darker than others, but we kind of want to just give it a light coating all over. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take our same sparkle shimmers and we're going to spritz it really well, and then we're going to let it dribble down just a little bit, just like this. Okay, and then we can let it dribble like that. Okay. So you can see we're kind of trying to get that color that we have there.
That shimmer.
And then the next thing we're going to do is take a paper towel
And dry the paper.
and soak up our
Shimmer.
excess.
Shimmer.
And then we're going to take our vintage photo and we're going to go around the edges just like this to give it a little bit of a darker tint. Just like that.
A little bit more distressed on some parts.
Yeah, we want it a little bit more distressed on some parts. Just like that. Okay. And we're going to let that dry. And once that's dry, we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to take our green stickles. We'll have this part on the front of our card, and then we're going to take our green stickles and smear it around. So we're going to let this dry for a few minutes, and then we'll be back.